everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Thanks for dropping in. I actually only have 2 points on today's topic, so it might not be that long. But it's something I've talked about before, and I think it's just something, it's such a great comparison that for those of you who are already into just being more prepared, putting up a few jars of this and a couple of bags of that and whatever it is, making sure you have water storage and ways to cook your meals in case the power goes out and so on and so forth. It's not as bad as it used to be, at least I don't think. But even now, there's still those people that are like, well, what's the point? You're crazy. Can I come to your house? Blah, 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 blah. You know, all these silly things that people say. And I really think the people that say, oh, I know where to go when something happens. I'm coming to your house. It's like, okay, well, bring all your preps with you if you do. Hello? I'm not doing all this work so you can go take your money and spend it on trips to here, there, and everywhere and waste it on this and that. You know, you got to help out a little bit. But regardless, I think a lot of the reasons people make those statements, it's just their little way of, oh, well, you know, just being a smart aleck. I think most of the time people don't mean it. However, I think if something really did happen, and then all of a sudden they would remember, oh, and then they would mean it. But one of the points I really like to make to people is about insurance. So let's just do some comparisons here. So first of all, let's say you're buying insurance. I mean, most of us are buying some kind of insurance. We no longer have house insurance. Our house has been paid off for a long time. And after what they did to us back in 2019, it's like, you know what? You 30 years of paying in and you can't be there for us when we need you. You're gone. You're gone. All of that money for 30 years we paid into that insurance. We got nothing from it. Nothing. What an absolute waste. So we ended up having to pay for the new roof ourselves out of our own pocket after pouring in who knows how many thousands of dollars over a 30-year period. B Lady says, same here after our home flooded. Seriously? My guess is that because like with our roof, a lot of people lost their roofs or portions of their roofs because of a freak and a windstorm that literally blew through here like a tornado and only lasted a couple minutes and then it was gone. And yet in that little brief amount of time, some people's whole roofs came off. A lot of people's, even the lady across the street, she had just gotten that roof the summer before and her whole ridge line came off. A lot of times when it's a disaster that hits so many people at once, they're going to find any excuse out because they're already doing a lot of payouts for other things. So they're going to find any excuse out. So you cannot guarantee that you're actually in good hands with house insurance. You can't. Well, even your auto insurance for that matter, even though our auto insurance has always been good to us. So anyway, you're paying all this money into insurance, yet when you need it, it may not be there for you. And then here's the other thing. Once your 6-month or 1-year policy, that's usually the standard. They're either 6 months or 1 year. 6 months typically for cars, 1 year for house, and health insurance, you're paying on it every month or however, right? So once your policy is up on your house or your auto, all that money you paid into is now gone. It's just gone. Okay. Now you got to do a whole new policy and start all over. So you could have went 6 months, a year, 10 years and never used that insurance, 30 years and never use that insurance. But it doesn't matter. Once it's over, that money is gone. It's just out of there. So now let's compare those two things. So it may or may not be there for you. And once policy is up, the money's gone. Now let's compare that to having some kind of preps on hand. Specifically, I'm thinking mostly of things like food, water, anything consumable goods that you need to use. So you're putting this stuff up, you're investing your money and time in it, and I can almost guarantee that it's going to cost far less if you're buying things on sale, you're growing your own foods, you're taking time to shop. Maybe if it's for items such as a cook stove or something that you can cook meals with, even a barbecuer in the event of a power outage, a lot of this stuff you can find secondhand. We got a barbecue for free at the dump. We had to buy a couple of parts for it, but other than that, it was in perfect shape. So it was a cheap investment. And you're going to spend a heck of a lot less money putting enough food to last you 6 months than you would in a 6-month auto insurance policy. Well, depending on what kind of food and how much you're putting up. But let's just say, for 6 months. So you got that. Then when that 6 months is up, guess what? It's still there. The food, the stove, the water, the whatever it is, the soap that you stocked up on, it's still there and it's still usable as long as you properly preserve that food and properly stored all that stuff. It's still there when the policy is up. A year later, it's still there. 10 years, 30 years later, it can still be there because, yes, a lot of that food, when properly stored, can definitely last that long. And who's going to deny you that? Who's going to say, well, you didn't pay enough into the food storage plan, so no, we're not going to give you your jar of carrots that you paid for, you grew, you put up yourself. Nope, can't have it. Can't have it. We're going to deny you this. You're just not a good enough client because you're the one that gets to decide whether or not you're going to use that stuff. Are you going to deny yourself that? You're going to deny your claim for those carrots? You're going to deny your claim for that bag of popcorn you put away? Well, hopefully not. Duh. I'm not saying don't buy insurance when you need it. Obviously, at least in the United States, I don't know what it's like anywhere else. I mean, legally, you're not allowed to drive anything unless it's insured. Okay. They got you on all sides on that. You got to pay your tabs, you got to pay insurance. But, there's certain things you aren't necessarily required. You're not required right now anyway to have health insurance. You're not required to have homeowners insurance unless you have a loan out on your house. Then you have to have homeowners insurance. I'm not against having insurance. However, when people want to argue with you about the silliness of putting something up, you can say, well, here's my insurance that will still be there after there's no policy deadline on it that's going to stop. And then all of a sudden, all this food I put up is just going to disappear into nowhere. And I'm not going to deny myself this stuff when I need it. You pay insurance, don't you? You pay for insurance? So it's an insurance policy. It is an insurance policy. Having things for being able to light your home, to be able to see when it's dark and there's no power, having a way to keep warm, having a way to feed yourself, having a way to water yourself, your dogs, your animals, all this stuff, in the event that you either can't get out because you broke your leg and there's nobody else to help you, in the event of maybe just a local power outage, a massive wide power outage, a job loss, a family illness. There's so many very, very realistic scenarios that happen to people every single day all over the place. And for people to say, well, it'll never happen here, it'll never happen to me, is foolishness, in my personal opinion. Just because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean it won't happen at some point or something similar. So a lot of people will say, well, we don't get hurricanes here in Washington state. That's just not, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay. But what else can happen to you? What recently happened to somebody in your own hometown that was devastating to them? I do want to make sure I make it clear that no matter how much preparedness you do, you're never going to always be fully prepared for everything. You know, you might think you've got everything covered and suddenly a fire just blazes through your town in a place that never gets fires, and everything you've worked hard for is gone. It means it still can happen. So we have to still be realistic. But at the same time, part of being realistic is preparing as much as we can for whatever may happen. And that is our insurance policy. Just like the roof, just like what B Lady was saying there. You might pay into this insurance, but then after 30 years, when you need it, they can just go, nah, we don't want to help you. Even though you've been, good clients for 30 years, always paying ahead, making sure you're never behind on your bills, never late. We don't want to cover you. We just don't. You're not important enough to us. They're going to find a way out if they can. They will. And these are the things we have to really remember.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
So we're talking about insurance
and preparedness.
Different types of insurance, not just the paper policy, but tangible policies, right?
Right. So, yeah.
Buy things today at today's prices and squirrel them away. I'm trying to figure out whether or not we're hoarders or preppers.
There's a fine line. There is.
Sometimes those lines blur a little bit, though.
If you look up the definition of the word hoard or hoarding, find an old dictionary, okay? Because
I looked like I was pointing at myself, but actually I was pointing at her.
Who is it that's
I was going like
needing
this,
to clean out his shop right now and in the process of cleaning out his shop? Anyway, if you look up the word hoard or hoarding, you'll find there was a time it didn't mean what it means today. Squirrels, why do we say squirrel things away? Squirrels hoard. That's what they do because they're preparing. But it's become this bad word now. And, well, of course, prepping or, preppers has also become a bad word when just being prepared is something people did. They didn't call it prepping. They didn't even call it being prepared. It was just living. It was just you grew your food, you raised your meat, certain time of the year, you put that stuff up. I mean, meat might be put up in a different time of the year, slaughtered and put up, than maybe your fruits and vegetables. But that's just what happened. That's what people did. It was to get them through the hard months, the winter months, or to get them through whatever life situation might, just like having that jar, that old coffee can full of cash. That was for emergencies, in case somebody needed to see the doctor.
What's interesting is just a generation like my dad, during the wintertime, they used to harvest their meat in the first, I think it's the first or second frost. And they would keep it all winter long. They would can the vegetables. They'd do all this stuff. And that's just called surviving back then. It wasn't called prepping.
No.
And now here we are today. And just my parents back, just back in the 30s and 40s, they were still doing that kind of stuff. But nowadays it's like, well, if you got over a week's worth of groceries in the refrigerator or in the cupboards,
you're a hoarder.
You're a hoarder.
How dare you?
Well, I suppose you could probably tell that to the folks that experience, hurricanes and tornadoes and different things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of those folks have a different mindset, going forward, and for good reason. A lot of people think of preppers as thinking of doomsday and just the end of the world and world without law or something like that. And not necessarily, but that could apply. But man, we're just on a delicate planet here. 1 minute it's nice outside, the next minute it's blowing and
Right.
carrying on, and trees are coming in the house or whatever, and yeah, things get ruined. Anyway, yeah, and we live on an island out here. Road on the north side of town, road on the south side of town.
We've become an island before.
Yeah, there's lots of trees out here, and every now and then
Lots
we'll
of
get
trees,
a
lots of big
little
trees, lots of
freak
wind.
snowstorm or something like that, and the lake gets an avalanche or something, or a slide. I mean, we haven't really been out of power for that long a period of time, but who knows when that day can happen. But
Right.
if times get tight, just financially,
I need my paper.
we have the means of
Those are yours.
kind of supporting ourselves
These are
for a
mine,
little
sorry.
while.
Sorry.
Did I take up your space?
You totally discombobulated me.
Anyway.
As you're talking, I keep thinking of things I want to say, and then I forget when you're done talking.
Oh,
darn
no,
it!
that's
Because
okay.
you make me think of something, and that's why I was trying to get my. Oh, so I can write that.
Want to rub your head a little bit?
No, stop it! Stop it! Skillet.
Rattle those nuts and bolts around a little bit. See if we can get some to connect.
Maybe that's yeah. Oh darn! I had a few really good points. I know there's more points being made here. What did Tyler say? We bought a 25-pound bag of salt many years ago. We haven't bought salt since. Rice comes in 25-pound bags too. All our spices are bought in bulk.
Right.
The markup when you buy by the ounce is outrageous. You know that?
Yeah, you're buying containers.
Right.
And you buy those little old bitty things of cinnamon or whatever. You're pretty much you're paying for the packaging is what you're doing.
I remember when Costco was a new thing out here. Well, the closest Costco, it's always been about 75 miles from us. And I had never been there. And I had a friend that said, hey, you want to go? I got a Costco card. You want to come into town? Let's go have a ladies' day together and take you to Costco. And I had been buying spices in those little, at our local store, those little, what are they, like an ounce, if that? Some of them are only a half an ounce. They're just those little tiny things.
2 servings.
And they were like $4 to $5 for one of those tiny little things. And when I went to Costco and I'm looking at these spices where I can get a whole pound of it for that same price, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I realized that purchasing a Costco membership at that time was definitely worth it because I could get all of that money back and just in what I saved in one shopping trip and then some. And so, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you do got to check your prices on some things. Like, you might see something that's 25 pounds and something that's 50 pounds and assume the 50-pound one might be cheaper than the 25-pound bag per pound. You got to do the math on that. If they're not giving you the per pound price, check the per pound price. If they're not giving it to you, figure it out yourself. Because sometimes or even if you go down the store and you see like, maybe there's smaller things that you might normally buy and you're seeing, oh, this thing here is on sale. Maybe it's a smaller package. Oh, it's on sale, but you can still buy the bigger one and still save money. And sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes the smaller ones go on sale and still end up being cheaper than the bigger one. So you always got to compare your prices and do the math on that and make sure that, you're really getting your money's worth when it comes to that. During the Depression, people would hoard and reuse or recycle. They had to.
Yep.
Absolutely. So we come back to necessity is the mother of invention. So when the need is there, not only are you going to find ways to make it work, you may invent your own things. Like people creating their own food dehydrators out of just scraps. Like that one picture I've shown a few times of where somebody took a screen door and, just looked like they recycled some table legs or something and put that screen door, a leg on each corner of that screen door and then just laid their food out on that. I mean, I want to make sure it was clean or know what the screen was made out of. If it's aluminum, you might want to put a cloth over it or something before you put the food down. But
You'll be proud of me, Heidi.
I'll be proud of you.
Yeah. So when I went to the dump yesterday, I did not bring anything home.
You didn't bring any garbage home?
Mm-mm.
You actually took a garbage and didn't exchange it for any other garbage.
No.
Whew, that's pretty good.
I looked. I said, no. Not gonna do it.
Yeah, he's trying to organize his shop, kind of like me and my craft room over here, my sewing room. Well, my fabrics and yarns and stuff are, well, not all of my yarns, but yeah, that was a job. I had to just get rid of a whole bunch of fabric, because if it gets to the point where you can't find anything and you can't even get into your craft room, your shop or whatever, it is there does come a point. Sometimes it's hard to get rid of scraps of lumber or scraps of fabric when you know you can possibly use it for something else.
Recovering.
This does have to be a balance.
Recovering hoarder.
Not really. I've always been one that after a while, it's like, okay, there's just too much stuff. I got to get rid of stuff. But that it is hard for me, because it's like I see stuff. It's like part of me thinks I should save this in case I can take this part and use it for something else, or give it to someone who needs it. Like I have a couple of boxes of clothes, like warm coats I don't wear anymore, that I'm saving, not for myself. I'm saving them in case something terrible happens and somebody might need those coats. So I'm hanging on to them just in case. My parents lived through depression and never wanted to throw anything away. Used to call my mom a pack rat in fun, but in that time they had to make do. Hard times could be coming again. Right.
Now I was at the garbage dump, and I was looking at the squirrel cage blower, and I'm thinking, well, I could gut that thing out and make an intake for, I'm working on a water wheel idea right now, and I can use that squirrel cage and some golf ball rollers to collect the water and dump all the, leaves and branches and dirt and rocks and whatever like that might come into the intake on that, and it would spill them over the edge. And I'll make it home. But I'm always coming across bed rails are really handy to have,
Yes.
And
yes.
I got a few of those squirreled away.
And he's done a lot with bed rails. He really has.
Bed rails are like a multifaceted,
right,
multi-purpose type of just general, and the metal's good. We build all kinds of stuff with it.
Well, that's how he made my the dehydrators. Is two. I keep them stacked on top of each other, and if I want to do one on the wood stove, because maybe I'm making jerky, then I take the one on top, set that on top of the wood stove, so it will dry faster and kind of cook it at the same time. But yeah, he made that rack, that holds the stainless steel mesh pieces. He made that out of all bed rails, and he has a video on that.
Dave said something about insurance. Insurance, they're in the business to make money off of you. So they really kick and scream and fight about paying out. So we actually decided to cancel our house insurance because they didn't pay when we really needed them. Figured the insurance company would come clean on us, but they decided not. The matter of fact,
sent a guy up from Texas.
A guy rolled up out in the middle of the street. He got out of the truck, and I noticed that his plate said Texas. Okay, we're in Washington State.
Why?
The farthest northwest you can get in the continental United States.
It says something about our deductible and patching it.
Yeah,
and
he said something to the effect. He said something to the effect. Well, you've got like a $5,000 deductible, don't you? I said, yeah. I said, it's going to cost more than that to put a new roof on here. And he goes, oh, I'd like to put you a new roof on there, but we can patch it for a lot less than that. And I looked at him and I says, well, we don't patch around here. We get 120 to 140 inches of rain. We don't patch. I said, I've got it patched. I've got it to where, you guys don't have to pay for sheetrock and everything else. And he says, well, you'd be better off just to go ahead and deny the claim, or, pull your claim, because I can't give you a new roof. He says, I can't even patch it. And he said, I can patch it for less than $5,000. Oh,
yeah, not happening. Not
testing
here.
my patience. So
not here.
I went in there and called the insurance company and said, well, we're going to cancel our house insurance. And are you do what? Well, we're going to cancel our house insurance. Okay. What if you have a fire? I said, well, you guys aren't going to cover it anyway.
Cover us anyway.
You're not going to cover
paying
us
in for 30 years.
Yeah. So anyway.
Actually, we didn't cancel it immediately. We held on for a little bit, but when the next policy thing came around and they raised the cost of it again, even though we pulled that claim, they still raised it. And it's like, okay, we're done. We're done. You're done. But yeah, there was a lady that was mentioning AK was her screen name there. She was talking about she wished she had been better prepared before her husband passed away. And I think that's a really good point. And by the way, I'm very sorry for your loss. I think we need to think about those kind of things. Sometimes I think we, how I was saying earlier, we kind of take things for granted. We kind of think, oh, this will never happen to me.
Right.
And you never know. You never know when you might lose your spouse or some other major catastrophe, and being ready for those things. I mean, you're never going to be fully ready for losing a spouse or loved one. You never can be, but especially when it's someone you depend on. And I know I've kind of talked about this a little bit before. I depend on Patrick to do certain things. He depends on me to do certain things. And if you have a significant other and it's, you've got this teamwork going on, it's really good for you guys to learn at least a little bit of what the other person does, to at least muddle through if you have to. And then also the losing a spouse is probably going to mean a major drop in income and a whole bunch of other things. And just another good reason to make sure you're covered in as many areas as you can. And so I think that's a good thing to bring up there. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for coming. Hope you have a great week coming up. And don't forget, subscribe to those channels down below, Rumble, Rain Country 2, blah, blah, blah. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless. Love y'all. Bye.